The late-night hum of the fridge was the only companion in the suffocating silence. Rain lashed against the window, each drop a tiny explosion in the symphony of the storm. Sleep, a cruel mistress, refused to visit. Tossing and turning, I felt a prickle of unease crawl up my spine. A faint thump, a muffled laugh, barely there at first, then growing steadily. Curiosity, a treacherous guest at this ungodly hour, gnawed at me. Peering through the blinds, a scene ripped from a nightmare unfolded. My next-door neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy, a woman known for her collection of porcelain cats and disdain for loud music, was apparently throwing a rager. Her windows, usually shrouded in lace curtains, pulsed with an unholy light show, strobes flashing like demented lightning, casting grotesque shadows on the rain-soaked trees outside. The music, a cacophony of discordant shrieks and bone-rattling bass, vibrated through the walls, a physical assault on my senses. This wasn't your average college party. It felt wrong. Unease simmered in my gut. Mrs. Abernathy lived alone, her only companions the aforementioned cats and a perpetual frown. The last time I saw her was weeks ago, collecting her mail, her frail figure dwarfed by a thick black coat. Yet, here I was, witness to an event that defied logic. Driven by a morbid curiosity and a growing sense of dread, I grabbed my phone, its flashlight a pathetic defense against the encroaching fear. The Ring doorbell glowed ominously on Mrs. Abernathy's porch, its soft blue light mocking the storm's fury. With a shaky breath, I pressed the button. The music seemed to falter for a beat, then roared back to life with renewed intensity. Silence. I waited, each second stretching into an eternity. Just as I turned to retreat, the chime echoed through the night, sharp and insistent. My heart hammered a frantic tattoo against my ribs as I stared at the doorbell's camera feed. The porch was deserted, rain pooling on the worn welcome mat. However, the laughter from within the house intensified, morphing into a chilling echo that reverberated through the dead air. It was joyous at first, then twisted, filled with a blood-curdling, inhuman quality that sent shivers down my spine. Panic, cold and clammy, started to grip me. I couldn't stay here, paralyzed by fear. Throwing on a raincoat, I sprinted into the downpour, the icy rain a painful baptism. Reaching Mrs. Abernathy's house, I pounded on the door. The music seemed to mock me, pulsing behind the dark windows. No answer. Desperate, I tried the doorknob. It turned easily, creaking open on rusty hinges. A blast of stale air, thick with the smell of dust and decay, assaulted me. Inside, the house was plunged into an inky blackness. The only light came from the multicolored strobes filtering in from the living room. Tentatively, I stepped inside, my phone flashlight cutting a weak path through the gloom. The furniture was shrouded in dust sheets, the silence punctuated only by the distant thump, thump, thump of the music. My phone buzzed. A news notification. Local headline. Beloved spinster missing. Police seek clues in Mrs. Abernathy's disappearance. A choked sob escaped my lips. This wasn't a party. This was something far more sinister. Panic clawed at me, urging me to flee. But then, a faint sound stopped me dead in my tracks. A rhythmic, scratching noise coming from the far end of the hallway. It was a sound I recognized, a sound that sent a fresh wave of terror crashing down on me. It was the scraping of fingernails against wood. Following the sound, I found myself at Mrs. Abernathy's study door. The scratching was louder here, frantic and desperate. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob. With a deep breath, I threw open the door. The room was a tableau of horror. The bookcase was overturned, books scattered across the floor like fallen dominoes. Papers were ripped and strewn everywhere. But it wasn't the mess that made me scream. It was the figure chained to the antique writing desk in the center of the room. A skeletal figure, its flesh stretched taut over protruding bones, its eyes hollow pits staring sightlessly ahead. This wasn't Mrs. Abernathy. This was something else. The music cut out abruptly, the silence thicker than the dust motes dancing in the strobe light's erratic flicker. The figure on the desk twitched, its skeletal head snapping towards me with a sickening jerk. A long, raspy moan escaped its throat, the sound so inhuman it sent a wave of nausea crashing over me. Then, it spoke. Its voice, a guttural rasp that seemed to emanate from the very floorboards, sent shivers down my spine. "Welcome," it rasped, "to the symphony of suffering." Terror locked my legs in place. My mind, desperate for a rational explanation, grasped at straws. Was this some elaborate prank? A Halloween decoration gone horribly wrong? But the stench of decay, the raw desperation in the creature's voice, belied any attempt at normality. The creature continued, its voice weaving a horrifying tale. It spoke of a ritual, an ancient melody that could summon entities from beyond the veil. Mrs. Abernathy, it seemed, had dabbled in forbidden knowledge, attempting to cheat death itself. The creature on the desk, a monstrous entity bound to the melody, was the price she paid. As the creature spoke, a low, rhythmic chanting filled the air, barely audible at first, then growing steadily louder. It emanated from the source of the music, the living room. I knew then that I had to get out. Adrenaline surged through me, propelling me towards the exit. I stumbled through the hallway, the creature's raspy pleas echoing in my ears. Reaching the front door, I fumbled with the lock, every second an eternity. Just as I flung the door open, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the house. I didn't look back. I sprinted into the night, the rain a stinging baptism washing away some of the terror. I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my own home, collapsing onto the porch steps, gasping for breath. The music continued from next door, a monstrous melody that seemed to burrow into my very soul. I called the police, my voice shaking as I relayed the events of the night. They found the house empty, no sign of a party, no sign of Mrs. Abernathy, no sign of the creature. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. The music still haunts me at night, a grim reminder of the night I stumbled upon the monstrous melody and the entity it unleashed. They say Mrs. Abernathy is still missing. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls outside, I swear I hear a faint, raspy voice singing along to the music, a chilling symphony of suffering played in a house next door.